Hey everyone. So there was a lot of mixed reactions to the latest video, the Dixie video, episode number 22. And we kind of felt like it was necessary to address a lot of the comments because there was a lot of people who were great. I mean, there's a lot of people in this community who are awesome, who totally understand the work that we're doing and who are right there with us. And we appreciate that. We appreciate everyone's warm wishes and heartfelt responses, and everyone that sent kind messages and left kind comments, and who just really understands what it's like to go through a situation like we went through with Dixie. We greatly appreciate that. So thank you all for just being so understanding. But there were also a lot of people who seemed to kind of maybe misunderstand some of the things that I said, or misinterpret, or maybe I said things that I misspoke and things came across in a way that I didn't intend. But there was a lot more negative comments on this particular video, and a lot more like spiteful, sort of aggressively angry comments that were calling out staff members on things that, you know, really hurt people's feelings. Like, you gotta understand that, like, it's not just me here. Like, there's a whole staff of people that work here. And it's easier for me to read YouTube comments and be like, okay, like, that's someone's opinion. But when you have someone who's been working here and day in and day out, they're dedicating their lives, like in the Dixie situation specifically, they're dedicating their lives to trying to save this animal and doing everything they possibly can to save this animal. And then this video comes out, and then they read the comments, and they see these comments of people who are just like bashing the decisions. It really hurts them. It really hurts the staff members. And I feel the need to sort of defend them because I think it's, you know, it's not right. Like, it's like sort of having someone walk into your workplace and start critiquing everything that you do. And that's really difficult. To have someone who has no experience doing the things that you do come to you and say, oh, you're doing this all wrong, or you messed this up and you should have done it this way, or I can't believe you did this. It's hard, you know? It's really hard for those people who give everything to what they're doing and who are making the decisions to their best of their abilities. So this is kind of what I want to address in this video. This is what I want to address in this video. The other thing is that I did make a mistake on the last video. I gave wrong information regarding Robert Troop, and I think it's very important that this information is rectified. The story that I told about babysitter biting a baby is actually absolutely incorrect. And this happens sometimes. There's stories that get passed around here over the years that are inaccurate. But they just get passed on from staff member to staff member. And, you know, for Tori and myself, this is the story that we had heard, so this is the story that I put into the video, but it was actually completely an incorrect story. And after the video came out, Josie actually sent me a text and was saying that she wanted to clarify what the story was. And so this is the text that Josie sent me to tell the story about Babysitter. So she said, just to let you know, Babysitter didn't ever bite babies. Robert actually never had any orphans before, because the year that they wanted to give Robert Troop orphans was in 2014. That was the first time they wanted to give Robert Troop orphans. And that year they had babies of their own. So they had their own births in Troop. So there was too many monkeys in the Troop that year to give them orphans. But ironically, Babysitter was called Babysitter because she loved the babies so much that she would steal them from their moms. And so what happened was that they were worried that if they gave Robert Troop babies, Babysitter would take the babies from the foster moms and wouldn't let them near the fence, wouldn't let them into the feeding cages, wouldn't let them back with people if something happened and the babies needed to be back with people. So, you know, she would steal the babies, not let them near the milk cages, she would constantly hug them and was wary of people. Then she had twins of her own. Babysitter gave birth to twins, and those babies both survived, which is very, very rare with vervets. And she did amazingly well with them. So she was actually a fantastic mother. And the troop was great as moms too. But they hadn't had orphans brought into the troop because they had given birth to their own babies. And then the other thing to say that she mentioned that I think is super crucial is that all the troops at the sanctuary were inexperienced at one time. You know, there was always the first orphan who entered a troop. So to say, why would you give a baby to an inexperienced troop is sort of like, you know, if you go for a job interview and they're like, oh, but you need to have work experience in this field before you can get the job. And you're like, well, how am I supposed to get the job how am I supposed to get work experience if I don't have a job? And it's just this like never-ending cycle of like, well, you can't have one without the other. So you can't have an experienced troop without giving an inexperienced troop babies. And I think that's important to think about, that like every single troop here, even Scro Troop, who is incredible with babies, was an inexperienced foster troop at one time, and they gained experience through the foster babies. So that's huge. And I think that a lot of people also forgot the fact that like 2 babies went into the troop. Yes, Dixie died. She was killed by a male in the troop or female. It's not sure which one, but I believe it was a male, most likely a male. But Darcy's fine. Darcy's still in the troop. Darcy's loving her life in there, you know? She's doing great. So you can't just say that the troop is, like, write off the whole troop. Like, it was a successful integration. You never know with wild animals why they react to each other a specific way. Maybe they saw something in Dixie or sensed something in Dixie that said, this is a weaker animal, or it needs to be, you know, it needs to be treated a different way. We can't know. We don't speak their language. We don't understand what's going on in their minds. So it's hard to say what happened there. But I think it's important to know that, like, it was not a complete failure of an integration. Yes, a baby died, and that's never happened before in this way. We've had other babies die when they've arrived in horrible condition, but we've never had a baby be killed by a troop. This is the first time that's ever happened. Totally caught everyone off guard, and another baby who went in at the exact same time did just fine. So that's something to consider. Also, I think what I want to do now is I just want to read a text. I want to read 2 texts. I'm not going to say who they're from, but they are people who are staff members who are in the top levels of staff at the sanctuary, and they were there every day. They were involved in this situation every day. They were the ones making decisions, and they knew everything that was going on. And I think it's important for them to be able to defend the choices they made, because a lot of the negative comments that I'm seeing are people saying, why would you send this baby back out into a troop without a mom? That's not true. That's not how that happened. Why would you let a baby stay in a troop for 5 days without eating? That's also not true. That's not what happened. So I'm going to read this text, and I'll read another one. So this one goes like this. So within 24 hours of Dixie going out and getting bitten, she was brought back into an intro cage. And Tori and Megan were able to take a look at the baby. And Dixie's initial wounds were superficial from what could be seen. She was cleaned up in surgery, she was given meds, and she was taken back to the intro cage, and she went back out into the troop with Darcy and Chippy. So Dixie came into the intro cage with Darcy and Chippy, was taken away from the intro cage, brought to surgery, cleaned up, given a professional observation, a look over, and was deemed healthy enough to go back out into the troop. A decision that's been made countless times here with countless monkeys. And when she went back into the troop, she went back in with Darcy, the other baby that she was integrated with, and with Chippy, who was Elsie, the other foster mom's mom. Chippy was in the enclosure with Elsie and Darcy the entire time. So it's not like she just got thrown back into the troop. It's not like there was no consideration to putting her back in there. That's what happened. She went back in normally, the same way that you would integrate babies every time. Elsie wasn't a great mom, which wasn't realized until the babies were released into the troop. And that's, you know, something that happens. But she was frequently around Dixie until the end and spent her first night with Dixie. So even after Dixie was being shunned and stuff, she still spent the night with Dixie and Darcy that first night after Dixie had been bitten, before Dixie came back into the intro enclosure. So once Dixie was back in the troop, she was out there for a day or two, and that's when it sort of became clear that she wasn't using the feeding cages. And she had been using the feeding cages just fine inside the intro cage, but now when she was out there, she wasn't doing it so well. So staff added additional feeding cages and food and water bowls throughout the entire troop. They put feeding cages and water bowls and food in the center of the troop, around the edges, in all the different spots she could possibly go to, so that she could have what she needed. They also passed out lentils to the troop, throwing them out for added protein. So every possibility was given to this baby monkey to have what she needed so that she could use it. Now, by this time, Dixie had Cece, which is another female who is a very low-ranked female, and she was caring for Dixie intermittently. And Cece is very shy and often wouldn't come out to the sides of the enclosure. So when you have a mom who's very shy and very low-ranked who's now taken on a baby, she's going to be very protective. And if she's not coming out, then how are people supposed to see what's happening with the baby and the mom? And Robert Troop is big. I mean, these troop enclosures are like an acre in size. And when you look at it, it's dense, dense, dense foliage. And you can't just put a person walking in through the enclosure because they will be attacked by the monkeys. Like, you got to think about the fact that, like, yeah, you see these babies interacting with people in Disneyland and it's okay, but when these babies arrive, they don't usually feel okay being around people. They're scared of people. They get humanized inside of Disneyland, and then for several months after Disneyland, these babies have minimal human interaction and they spend their time with the moms so that they are dehumanized. So by the time the babies go out into the troop, they're actually weary of humans and they don't want to approach humans. So if you send a person into the troop to go look for a baby and try and catch it, it's impossible. A baby will climb the tree. You can't run up a tree after a baby. You get up that tree, it's going to jump to the next tree. Also, when the troop sees you going after a baby in their troop, they're going to come after you. They're going to bite you. I don't know if you've noticed the size of these monkeys' canines, but they do serious damage. These things will tear you open. So it's not like you can just walk into a troop and like go grab the baby monkey. It's much more complicated than that. And so at this point, we also had every possible intro cage open in an effort to lure Dixie back in for supportive care. This is during these 5 days. And in the first few days, there was no way anyone could have gone in and just plucked her out of a tree without being attacked or simply having to climb and then climb and then climb and then climb. So throughout these entire 5 days, there were a minimum of 4 people literally walking around looking for Dixie from dawn until dusk, trying to get her inside and reporting on her condition. I don't know if, okay. This is the text that I'm reading from. To frame what happened as negligence is insulting. And this is coming from a staff member. If we were negligent, then the hundreds of orphans that have graduated through our foster mom program over the years wouldn't make any sense. It's not human negligence that she died. These are wild animals that you can't control. Yes, we learned from this. Of course we did. But we also learned from the 58 other successful integrations over the last 2 seasons. I'm not going to read the last part because it's kind of angry. I don't want to go there. And then the other thing that someone else wanted to say was that we work hard to get them to trust us, monkeys. But deep down, they know they're still monkeys. Once they bond with another monkey, it's like resetting everything we've done. Dixie knew she was a monkey. Trying to go into the enclosure and just pick her up would be like trying to catch a bar of soap in the shower. We had to wait for her to want to come inside. But she didn't want to because she was scared of people. She would rather stay in the troop with the monkeys and climb in the trees where she felt safe. And that made everything difficult and heartbreaking. And if there was any other option, we would have done it. Also, we didn't wait 5 days to search for her. We were there dawn to dusk 5 days in the middle of the night, and every time it rained and no one slept for a week. And to people who said, how could you see her initial wound and still put her back? Because I've seen millions of monkey wounds, and the first ones were not life-threatening. And don't you think I lay awake for days thinking exactly the same thing? And that part breaks my heart the most. Because it's so easy to just leave a comment and like say something so hurtful and critique someone, but like, I just feel for everyone who went through the pain of questioning all of their actions and everything that happened. I don't know if there's much else to say, and that's really what I wanted to say. So I hope that cleared some things up, and I hope that helped some of you to maybe get a better understanding of how things went down, and maybe not be so angry toward us for the misinterpretation of what occurred. And I take full responsibility for that misinterpretation because I make these videos. I spend the time editing these videos. I do the narration, I tell the story, and I try to tell the story the best I can within a time frame and to keep it emotional and entertaining so that everyone wants to watch. And it's my fault that I said what I said and it was wrong or it was misunderstood. And so I'm really sorry to everyone for that. Not just the viewers, but especially the staff, that I said, I could have said, or said anything that was misinterpreted. So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I hope that's a little bit helpful. I hope people can understand more sort of what we go through here and why things went the way they did. Thanks.